Welcome to our video notes covering information on segments, rays, parallel lines, and planes. Today we are going to go over the definition for each of these terms, the picture that would represent each one, and how to name each of these terms. The first one is the segment, and for the segment we are looking at two endpoints and all points between. So you can see in our first picture here, we have two distinct endpoints depicted, as well as the line in between. So this is our segment AB. There could be many other points in between, but we're focusing on the endpoints with A and B. The way that we would name this is we would simply write A, B, and we would put a straight line over top, and that is showing segment AB for this picture. The second term is ray, and a ray shows one endpoint and all points on one side. So you can see for our picture here, we have the ray A, B, and it's showing that we have the specific endpoint A, and then that continues on toward B. And it would show all the points on this side, but it's going toward B. So we would write this ray as A, B, and we would put the line over top, but this time it would have an arrow going toward B because it has the endpoint A, but it's going to continue on toward B, and that's endless on that side. The second one we have shown here is the ray DC. We would write this one the same, but we can actually write it two different ways. If we wrote it how this one looks, we could write simply DC and put our arrow over top. Notice that our endpoint is D and we're heading towards C, which is why we can write it this way. But we could also write this one as CD, and we would just make sure that again our endpoint is at D and we're heading towards C. So that's what this arrow looks like here. Either of these would be correct to write this ray as long as you're showing that your endpoint is D and it's heading towards C. The last one is an opposite ray, and this is where you have still a distinct endpoint, but this time it's going to head from F toward G. So I could write it like this, GF, and I would make sure that my endpoint starts at F and we're heading toward G. So that would be my one ray. And then on the other side, you can see that we again have the endpoint F, and it's heading down toward H, which includes the letter J as well. So if we wanted to write it that way, we would just write F, H, and I'm going to have my arrow over top heading from my endpoint F toward H, and you can see that those are opposite rays. They're heading in opposite directions, but they both have that distinct endpoint of F. For our next term, we have parallel lines, and that is defined as coplanar lines that do not intersect. So if we look at this picture here, that definitely shows us some parallel lines. So one set that we could pick out would be that AB, you can see line AB here, would be parallel to line EF. So we would write that as AB, line AB, so we have to have the line over top, and since it's a line, it has to have arrows on each side. So line AB, and we would write parallel, just like we looked at the other day. Line AB is parallel to line EF. And we would draw our arrow over top and have arrows represented on each end since they are both lines. So line AB is parallel to line EF. Those would be parallel lines. Our next definition is, or our next term is skew lines, and the definition for that would be non-coplanar lines. So non-coplanar lines, not parallel, and they do not intersect. So they have to be from different planes. They are not parallel and they do not intersect. So if we look at our figure again, we can see here that again, we could use our line AB, but this time we're looking for a skew line. So it has to be a line that's not on the same plane, and it can't be parallel, and it cannot intersect. So a good line we could use for this to go along with AB would be DH. So we can write that over here. For skew lines, we can say AB, line AB, and line DH, and we can say for that our skew. So those are skew lines, AB and DH. They're on different planes, they don't intersect, and they are not parallel. For our last one, we can see the term parallel planes. So now we're looking for parallel planes, and these would be planes that do not intersect. So we want to find two planes that do not intersect. I'm going to turn on my highlighter so we can see a couple planes that would fit that description. So first of all, I can see a plane on the top here, and we could name this plane AGHB. And I can see here that plane AGHB, if I highlight that, that's talking this one right here, would be parallel with this. So this is the top plane. I see that that's parallel with this bottom plane. So it would be parallel with plane DJIC. So if I highlight that in, we can see that's this bottom plane down here. Those are parallel planes, and they do not intersect. So we'll just write that on the side here, that plane AGHB right there, AGHB, plane AGHB is parallel to plane DJIC. DJIC. And I'll take off the highlighting here so you can see the letters better again. So once again, we can see that plane AGHB, this top plane, is parallel to plane DJIC. Here are some examples for you to look at. The first one, I would like you to name a line that's parallel to line PS. So name a line parallel to PS. So look at this figure, and you can see that line PS is right here. See if you can come up with a line that would be parallel to PS. Hopefully you came up with line QR. So we could write that over here. Line QR would be parallel to line PS. The second one says name two lines, two skew lines. So see if you can name two skew lines. So if we wanted to say, so we're looking for two lines that don't intersect and they are not parallel with each other. So two that I can find here, if you wanted to stay with the PS again, the PS line, a line that would be skew to that would be this VR. So we could put up here that line PS is skew to line VR. The next example, name three lines that intersect at one point. So you're trying to find three lines that intersect at one point. Again, you're using this figure. So see if you can find those three lines that intersect at one point. Looking at this diagram, I can see that SV intersects up here with RV as well as QV. So those three lines would intersect SV, RV, and QV. QV would all intersect at this same point. And the last one with this figure, name three non-collinear points. So remember, non-collinear means that they're points that are not found on the same line. So if we look at this figure again, see if you can find three non-collinear points. Some examples could be Q, R, and P. You could also use V, Q, and P. We could use R, S, and V. So there's many options for this, but you're trying to find 3 points that are non-collinear, 3 points that are not found on the same line. The next question correlates with this figure here. And the first one is name 2 labeled segments. So we're looking for segments, which means we should have 2 endpoints. Looking at this figure, so I can see here that 2 segments that I have could be L, M. I also could have segments M,